I just heard that 4 million people watched baseball games in Denver, Colorado this year. 60 million people watched the Super Bowl. What role do you think sports plays in U.S. ideology?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sports. Sports are great. Sports are a wonderful human activity. They're one of the few activities people do where they're not doing each other in. Well, I wouldn't say maybe football occasionally somebody does get badly hurt. But, and sports have always been important in almost every society, from Native American Indians, ancient Greeks, Rome, whatever. But you can certainly do an analysis of the way sports are very much linked to patriotism. During the Gulf War, for instance, Bush was insistent, no, we won't suspend the Super Bowl, let's have it and all that. And he got down there, and during the part-time break, you had all these American flags and the Army, Navy, and Air Force coming out, and the celebration and the linking of national sports with national military. The same terminology is used. The military adopts all the sporting terminologies for it. During the Cold War, it was terrible the way that propaganda went on. When Nazi Germany did this in the Berlin Olympics in the 30s, we all said, "Ooh, that Hitler, what is he using the sports for political purposes?" But geez, all the Olympics, that's the way it was done. We beat the Russians and all. And when that Soviet basketball team beat the American team back in, when it was that, 1988, 89, my God, I remember watching NBC acting like it was the end of civilization as we knew it. Talked about a Soviet juggernaut that relentlessly came forward, grinding away at our brave American players, a team that was hobbled by injury as if the other team had no injuries. It made it sound like they were fighting the Red Army instead of a basketball team, you know. So in that sense, there is a kind of a propagandistic thing that can often come in. Another thing about sports is it's amazing in the media how much time is given to it. I mean, they're reporting the 11 o'clock news. I mean, sports gets a time segment that's about as big as the news itself. And also, the definition of sports, the distorting effects that this has on sports itself, where sports becomes defined as a mass spectator sport, that you get masses of people collected to watch these key performers, when in fact sports should be something that people themselves are doing. So what we should have is more intramural sports and those kind of things, and less big-time star sports. And the effect of the media is to do that very same thing, is to turn it into a big business where the players are treated like hunks of meat on the hook. That's it.
Professor, can you give our audience an example of the types of impediments to democratic social change that exist? Sports would be one of them. When people worry about sports scores, they're not worrying about other more important social issues. Can you think of anything else like that?
Yeah, well, let me say one more thing about sports, that what sports do is hijack our loyalties to a high-paying, high-powered team that's put together by a multimillionaire, and rather than our loyalties, say, going, and our energies and attention. I mean, because you can find, when I lived in Washington, D.C., you could find people on the street who could name the whole Redskin defensive line and the Hogs, the offensive line and the backfield, and who was this, and can give you, and could talk for 2 hours perfectly informed about sports, and who didn't know a thing about politics. So it is a way of depoliticizing people, of distracting people. They said about ancient Rome, you gave them a little bit of the bread and you gave them a lot of circuses too, to keep them happy and keep them distracted, while we fleeced them and did really very little for them. So that's the function of sports. The other impediments of social change